Hey, I'm back. This is Chandler for Melda Production, and today I'm going to be going over the Melda compressors. Lots of people are wondering, like, what is the difference between all these different compressors? What can one do that the other one can't do, etc. And today I'm going to try to explain that, maybe my personal views and some of the features they have. I'm not going to go over every single dynamic processor, like I'm not going to go over like M limiter X because that's a limiter, and I'm not going to go over M spectral dynamics, but I will be going over MCompressor, MDynamics, MDynamicsMB, MModerncompressor, and MTurboCompressor, and along with that MTurboCompressor MB because that comes with it. So let's get started. I have a little loop here. I'll play, it's just a drum loop. And I'll use that to demonstrate some of these compressors, although some of these don't really need any like demonstration. I can just show you what they do. So MCompressor is one that comes with the free bundle. Of course, you have to pay to unlock it if you want a few extra features like saving presets, etc. But if you don't want to do that, you can get it for free and it will have the basic features. What this has, it has lots of different controls like input, output, attack, release, the RMS level, the threshold, and the ratio. These are all fairly common controls you'll see on other compressors. It also has a knee mode, so you can set this to hard knee. If you look here, how it is. If I set it to linear, you can see it slightly changes, and I can change the knee size like this. Let me increase the ratio so you can actually see it. This is hard, this is linear, and then you have the soft mode here, where it's a little bit curved. And those will kind of determine what it sounds like, and it can be really useful sometimes if you want a little bit more soft sounding and not as, I don't know, I should say colored or abrupt compression. Another thing here is we have this maximized to 0 dB, and this is going to actually increase your signal no matter, how much you compress it. It's going to make the output higher. I actually don't like this on, so I usually take this off, and if you look, it goes from 0 to whatever level it is. Some people do, I personally don't. And we have this linked channels here. What this is going to do is it's going to change it from something that compresses both channels equally to, if I have it off, what it's going to do is each channel left and right is going to have a separate compressor on it. Now you might be wondering, like, why would I want it to have like a compressor on the right channel and a compressor on the left channel, or why would I want them linked together so it's just one compressor controlling both? The reason you might want to do this is if I have two signals and I want them to be even in volume on the left and the right, I would probably have it unlinked, like this. For example, if I'm recording guitars and, each strum isn't the same, strength. So if I record a guitar and put it on the right, and then I have a guitar on the left, and then I put them through a bus, and they're both processed together. Let's say I put MCompressor on this. If I have them unlinked, it will have let's say this compressor. I'm getting tongue-tied. I'm sorry about that. This compressor will just process the right, and it'll be like having a separate compressor just processing the left. So they'll have different gain reduction amounts, which you'll be able to see here. That can be good because now the two sides will be even. However, let's say if I was doing drum overheads, if my snare drum is to the left and I have this off, the left side will be compressed more than the right, and it's going to make almost like a shift and make it sound like my snare drum is in the middle, which I don't want. I want those level differences in that case. In that case, I would do link channels and turn that on. Usually I have it linked, but there are cases you don't want this, so just keep that in mind. Hope I explained that well enough. I'll play this here with the ratio, and then I'll show you maybe two other things like the sidechain. So let's get this in here and let's start playing with this and compressing things. So just normal compression. I'm doing a lot there, but I'm doing this to kind of show something. I'll show you how the sidechain works. We have to enable this. And one, we can use a sidechain input by clicking it here. And if I had another track going into this, I could control that, the amount of reduction using the second track. Usually use this for something like the bass drum controlling a electric bass, for example. So if I had MCompressor on an electric bass, I turn on the sidechain input, send the kick drum into MCompressor, and then whenever the kick drum hits, it's going to duck down my electric bass. That's how it works, but I don't have that now. Another way we can use this is we can use these high pass and low pass filters to filter out some of the high end and low end. And it's not going to make a difference to what we actually hear, but it will make a difference to what's compressed. If you want to hear this, we're going to click this. So I'm going to click this, I'm going to move this high and low pass, and you'll kind of hear what it's doing. Okay, you're thinking like, that's, cutting off the low end. But if we turn this off, we're not going to hear this, but you will see the bass drum is not going to trigger the compressor anymore. It's just going to be the snare drum, like this. And we could obviously do the opposite, like this. Now, I probably wouldn't want to do that much, but that gives you an idea of how the sidechain works. And all the other plugins have something similar. So this is MModerncompressor, and keep in mind, a lot of the stuff that I just showed here will be available in the other compressors. And one more thing I'll show you here, I'll move this ratio up a little bit. We have this custom shape. You're wondering what this is. Now, let's say we're going to do something with some upwards compression. I'll set this and set the threshold first so we can see where it is. I'll move this down. Right now, this shape is determined by the ratio and threshold. If I click custom shape, now you see there's nodes here. I can actually add or maybe subtract them. What we're going to do is I'm just going to add one here at the bottom, and this is just so the very low level noise I get rid of. And then we're going to increase this. So everything that's very low in volume is going to be increased, which you'll hear. I might have to turn the output down like this. Now you can really hear that snare drum release, that pa, like that. And so if that's what you want, you can do it. This is way too much, but I think you get the idea of what you can do. And you can add more points here for whatever crazy shape you want. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but if you want to, you can. So there is MCompressor. The next one we have is MDynamics. Now this one is almost the same, but you see here, this actually has different devices we can use. So now it has compressor, we have vintage compressor, vintage Varishape. We have an expander here. This one has a gate, which is awesome. We can use this ducking effect. So like I told you before, if you want to duck, let's say drum or say a bass using a kick drum, we can do this. And this is already set up for you, so you don't really have to do anything. Just send the sidechain in here and it's set up. We have a de-esser. So just like I showed you before with the snare drum, we can do the same thing with vocals. We also have here mix glue, some for mastering, vocals, drums, bass. We have some limiting presets or devices, I should say, here too. If we look inside, it's almost exactly the same. We have the same sidechain stuff we did before. Only difference is now we can control the resonance, we can control the sidechain gain, and we have, besides just the low pass and high pass filters, we have an EQ. So if you want to do more bands and cut out a certain frequency, we can do even more shaping with that. Same thing here, we have the processor 1. We can control this just like before with the ratio. This ratio can actually go to, it's not really negative ratio, so it's like 1 over something. So it's a little bit different. But you can do that with it, control the knee size. You can actually control the range too, so it doesn't go over a certain amount of decibels in reduction, etc. There's all sorts of things in here. Before, what you'd have to do with this one is, let's say I had something, it's like, you know what? this material, it's very soft, so I'm gonna have to really crank the input and then turn down the output. If you don't want to do that, you can just use the temporary gain. And so that would be like increasing the output and increasing the input and decreasing the output, or the opposite, decreasing the input and increasing the output. But it's not going to really change the volume. Useful. On top of that, we have two different processors here. So now we have this processor one with a threshold, but we can add a second one here. So we can have like two different amounts of gain and change if we want to, which I think is really cool. And on top of that, we have a gate. So if you want to use a gate, we can do that with the size parameter. We can adjust threshold. And the bottom now, it's set to silence, but you actually don't have to have that. You can like reduce it to maybe negative 80 decibels or something. There's all sorts of things you can do. We also have more options in the release mode. Lots of different releases. You have a peak hold function. You have look ahead also, which is really good. So that way, if you're worried about it going too slow, you can make sure you can speed it up and do it that way. You also have lots of things here in how it's detected the attack shape and the release shape, the speed. Usually this one for the faster settings and extreme settings, these will give you a lot faster detection, and you can cut off those peaks faster, but it's more likely to cause distortion. The slower ones won't give you distortion, but you might get more pumping. So you can kind of adjust that, which one you want. Pick your poison. It also has a psychoacoustic pre-filtering if you want. Lots of things in here. And it just has the device, so if you just want to like, let me mess with my drums here, and you can do something with that. Let me go in here, set my limiter. You see, it has just lots of different devices to make this kind of compression easy for you. Next one is almost the same. This is MDynamicsMB. This is the exact same thing. The only difference is now we have multiband. So there's lots of different things you can use. It has the same thing here. We have another one for acoustic drums, etc. We can adjust the presence, brilliance, tone. Maybe since I have acoustic drums, let's actually try that out. Etc. So we have that, and we can adjust lots of things there. Even has some interesting ones, like I like this lo-fi one personally. Reminds me of like some old hip hop. I really like that one. Anyways, if you want to get inside, just click the edit button, just like before, and we have the same thing. And now we have all these bands here we can do things with. These are split by frequency, but if you're thinking, hey, I don't want to split by frequency, right-click it, you can open it up, and you have different types of crossovers. So you have this one, which is, I believe, minimum phase, but we also have linear phase mode. You can split it by the panorama, so left and right. You can split it in mid-side. You can have parallel bands where it's just like having a bunch of these in parallel, etc. Spectrum, tonal, transient mode, serial mode, etc. So there's lots of things you can do with this. If you don't want to get into all that, you can just use the presets, and there you go. There's some things you might want to use this for that you may not use for MDynamics. So something that I might want to use this for is like some mix. If it's like, the mix seems a little bit unbalanced, sometimes this might be better. So it's controlling the bass. If the, like, let's say bass drum gets to be too much in certain parts, I might want to use this as opposed to a normal compressor. Or maybe if I'm playing a electric guitar and I'm doing like some big chunks, like heavy metal, chug, chug, chug stuff, sometimes those chugs get to be too much, so I might want to put a multiband compressor on there to just get rid of some of those low-end sounds. But I don't want the mid-range to be messed with at all, so I might use MDynamicsMB for that. So that's a use of this, but there's a lot more. Just that's the difference, basically. It's almost the exact same as MDynamics, you just have the multiband feature. Oh, and something I should mention that I don't think I did in MDynamicsMB or MDynamics, you're probably thinking like, what about that upward compression thing you showed me with the custom build? It's in both MDynamicsMB and MDynamics, although it's a little bit hidden. Not really hidden, but you maybe don't know where it is. You're thinking like, where's that custom shape thing? It's this. Click this, and I can start going through and adding the dots. So, and here, it's the same place. The other ones have it. It's just sometimes if you're not looking for it, you may not be able to find it. But it's there, don't worry. MModerncompressor is the next one. This one actually doesn't have it, so that's not good. But it does have something else that's cool, and that it has that is the automatic compression. So what we can do is we can analyze this track, we can find the dynamic range, and then we can adjust how much dynamic range we want, and it'll adjust our threshold and range, or say our ratio automatically. So I'll just click Analyze, play it. Okay, and so it says the dynamic range of this is 29.28 decibels. Now it's set at 15 decibels, but maybe I think, that's too much. Let's set it at like 21 or so. So I want to bring down the dynamic range. I'd normally want to take down the attack and release and set those however you want, but this we don't really need it. And then let's click auto compression. Now you see it set my threshold and it set my ratio, and I might need to turn this down, but we're going to try to match the in and the out, and let's hear how this sounds. And because I didn't set this so aggressively, I think it still sounds fairly natural. So this is a nice thing you can do and just add this in if you're thinking like, I just kind of like even out the dynamics a little bit, but I don't really want to crush it. Instead of spending a lot of time playing with the ratio and the threshold and everything, this will kind of do it for you automatically. So I like this if you want to think about things in a different way. It's usually hard for me to think about like, what's the ratio or what's the right threshold? But by thinking of the dynamic range where I can see it's like, okay, this is at a 29.28 decibels dynamic range. I think, I want a little bit less than that, but not anything crazy. I can set it down to like 21 and think, oh, okay, that's good. If I don't like that, just reset it and then set it again. So that's what MModerncompressor is good at, in my opinion. Also has a sidechain if you're wondering about that. Like, what do I do with that? It has a sidechain. It has the same thing, the EQ, as I showed you before in MDynamics. You can mess with that too. And it has the look ahead. So there's lots of things you can do with this. This one is made for a very specific purpose, but for that purpose, it's useful. I think it's really useful for like maybe dialogue or something like that. But that's just my opinion. The last one I'm going to show is MTurboComp. Now, this one is a little bit different because this one is going to be maybe showing lots of different vintage compressors. We have lots of different devices here based on vintage compressors, and what I really like about this is it has saturation and other things, and all these sound different. But most importantly, if you look over here, you have all these different things, and these are kind of like A, B, but in this case, it's A through H. What I oftentimes like to do is I will set something and make sure, try to make it sound good. And then if I think, you know what, maybe I want to use a different compressor, I can set another compressor on B, and then I can A-B back and forth and decide which one sounds better to me. These are based on vintage compressors, but I should say they don't have all of the exact same controls. Lots of times they're they add some other things that make your life a little bit easier. The easiest way is just to use the compression, and what this will do is kind of like simulates like the input and output. Normally I have to like go in and set the input and then move down the output and maybe change the threshold and everything. you can really just set lots of things just by using the compression and looking at the gain reduction amount here. So let's set this first one. Let's say I like that one. Let's go here and let's choose a different model like this. Now we're going to set this one. And now that I have them set, of course, I'd normally want to go and mess with the ratio and other things too, but now I can A/B back and forth between these two. And so I can kind of set this a few different ways, and I don't have to really go and think like, what did I do before? I changed it this way. Now I erased it. What did I do? You can, A-B or A-B-C or A-B-C-D between lots of different compressors and find the one that fits your song. So you can try a lot out and, mess with it until you get it right. And maybe have one mixed version using A, another mixed version using B, another mixed version using C, and ask people like, how do you feel about mix A? How do you feel about mix B, etc. So I think that's one of the greatest things about MTurboComp. There's also an MTurboComp LE, which is a little bit cheaper, and it only allows you to do this, but this is the full version, and I can go into the edit screen, and there's all sorts of things I can do in here. It's all the stuff I showed you before. You have the RMS length, the peak hole, but now I have a delay in here. I have more than one follower, which I didn't before. I can set the attack and release. See, there's 2 there. I could add another one. Now I got 3 for some reason. Kind of going crazy. Setting the everything on here if you want that. I have the processors here. Change those whichever way you want to. I also have equalizer, just like I showed you with the sidechain. I can adjust that if I wanted to. And also these are more fully featured than the other ones. It also has some saturation, so you can add your own saturation here. There's a ton of things you can do with this. I don't want to go over everything because it would take forever, and I'm not even sure if I understand everything in here. But it has lots of stuff, and if you like to tweak things, this is the one. It also comes with MTurboComp MB, which is the multiband version, so you get that included with MTurboComp. So hopefully that explained the difference between all these different EQs. I kind of use these for different things. I usually use MTurboComp when I'm mixing. I use MCompressor just for very basic tasks. Maybe if I'm ducking a bass or something, I might use this first, or I might use MDynamics. I use MDynamics when I need to use a gate. I could use the other ones like MTurboComp. This does have a gate, but for some reason, I just feel more comfortable using MDynamics. MDynamicsMB I use, as I said, for when I need some multiband things. It's usually I have to fix something, or maybe just like overall mix balance I want to adjust. I might use it for that. And MModerncompressor, that would probably be more utility. For example, if I had to even out some dialogue where I was speaking a lot or something. It's good for that. So hopefully this gave you an overview of all of these different compressors, why you would use them, the different features, etc. If it did, give me a thumbs up. If you have any additional questions, leave those down below, and be sure to check out all the other plugins at meldaproduction.com. Till next time, see you.